Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. And I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the month of June. And we also have the week of June 5th through 11th. So a lot to cover today. So just real quick, the Astrological Winds channel is a video blog that I do on YouTube every week and look at the astrological weather report for the week, for the whole world. So if you're not big on astrology in the sense of your knowledge base, remember, don't get lost on the astrological terms that I'm using. You want to listen to the interpretations of those terms, and that's the important energy of what you know will be working in the world acutely this week, and you can work with that energy. So that's the goal of the blog, is to let you guys know the energy that's working in the world so that you can use it better. So don't get caught up on that astrological stuff. And then, of course, a lot of you know astrology, so I always do mention that stuff so that you know why I'm saying the stuff I am. Now, like I said, it is a free blog. And there's two ways that I ask people to repay me, or if they can, and that is, number one, to pass the link on to somebody else that you know when you're done with the blog. We're getting more and more followers every week, both on YouTube and on podcasts. Remember, it's available on podcasts too. Astrological Winds channel. Just look it up. Your favorite podcast. There's about 20 of them that carry it, like Apple iPodcasts. You don't really need to see the video. It's really the words that you need to hear. So pass the link on, or pass the blog link on, and let people know about it. And the other way is, I am a professional astrologer. So if you or anyone else are ready for a reading, whenever that may be, today or 10 years from now, please, give me, drop me an email at matthure823@gmail.com, and we can talk about how setting that up for you. I've been doing readings for over 20 years professionally, so would love to do yours and help you understand the energy that works in your life better, so that you have more self-fulfillment and power and control in your life. So like I said, once again, matthure823@gmail.com. And thanks for that. And I'd like to get into the astrology, and I will give more detailed information at the end for contact in case anyone is interested in that. Okay, so June. I didn't do June last week because we had the full moon. So there's four bigger things I want to mention about in June. And this is some, pretty juicy stuff, especially the first thing that I'm going to talk about, and that is on June 11th, which is actually at the end of this week. That's actually on Sunday, so this is part of the weekly too, but this is much, much bigger than weekly. This is Pluto, which went retrograde about a month ago, if you remember, right after Mercury did, and going back into Capricorn. Remember, it had gone into Aquarius about 10 weeks ago, just a little bit, turned around and went retrograde. So now it's going back into Capricorn. Pluto on January 26, 2008, went into Capricorn. And just think about how much society has changed since then. If you have, if you were even 10 or 11 years old by 2008, just think about how much society has actually changed in those 20 years. Pluto, being one of the long-term planets, it's all about transformation on a very large scale. It's beyond our individual lives. It's a planet that not only is, bringing us along collectively, but it's actually bringing all of society and culture along. And whenever it changes a sign, which is about every 20 years, it exposes the underbelly, or the shadow side, or the subconscious side of the energy of what's going on in society, and shows us all the places where what may have been occurring prior to that as something strong on the surface where there is shadow, where there is issues, where there is stuff that's underlying that's not as much on the up and up. So since that time of January 26, 2008, Capricorn represents all the structures in society. You know, how we literally have built structure, like infrastructure, for instance, you know, on a physical level. And what have we seen in the last 20 years? How our infrastructure is failing in many, many places, literally, like, you know, bridges, roads, railways, electrical systems, things like that, that are really have reached a point where they cannot, you know, they've reached the end point of where they can be for the usefulness that they had at the time. They haven't, you know, they kind of got stuck and they haven't adjusted to the way society is. So there's weaknesses that we see. And not only that, but on all kinds of abstract terms too. And in relationship to Capricorn, that's our leadership. That's our business leaders in particular, our corporate leaders, our banking leaders, our political leaders. We have seen since 2008 what happened. Everybody on both the right and left has seen how the society is falling apart on abstract levels too. And what has happened, we've gotten into a giant power struggle, which is what Pluto is all about how to fix that. And people trying to use authority to push and coerce their way, not reason whatsoever, not sit down and try to work it out with the other side, but to do these powerful, manipulative, ruthless, underhanded at times, violent, coercive type stuff that negative Pluto energy will bring when we are not looking at the shadow and accepting that it's there and trying to purge it so that we can bring something new in to transform those times. That's what Pluto showed us in the last 20 years. That all these structures in society that are falling apart need to be transformed. And so here we, you know, like I said, we're going back into this. We get this little bit, and what's going to happen with Aquarius the next 20 years? We can already get a really good example of that just in the news so much the last few weeks. While we had these 10 weeks of Pluto in Aquarius, what was one of the big news stories? How AI and technology is actually a danger to humanity's survival, quite possibly. Boy, how Plutonian can you get in Aquarius? To be told that by our big tech leaders, that this is a very dangerous thing. Plutonian for sure. The shadow side of technology is what the next 20 years of Pluto and Aquarius is going to show. How are we going to be able to control technology, or is it going to control us? Do we have to create a singularity just between humans and AI just to keep our eyes on AI? You know, so this is going to be a very interesting 20 years. But meanwhile, we go back into Capricorn until January of next year, January 21st of 2021 is when we'll finally go back into Aquarius again. So Pluto, which is retrograde, is going to go direct on October 10th, right? But it's now going to be in Capricorn until January 24th next year. How interesting is that? Because when we got to the end, near the end of the critical degrees of Pluto and Capricorn, the last 3 degrees, where the whole age of those 20 years since 2008 pretty much were starting to wrap up. Not quite 20 years in Capricorn, but 15 years or so, we're starting to wrap up. All of a sudden we have the dichotomy of the two sides that were created back in 2008, right? Of Occupy left, Tea Party right, come together in an election of Trump versus Biden, in a very extreme election both sides accusing each other of cheating, of, power struggling, manipulating, coercing, all that kind of stuff. And now, what are we having now? Trump is once again the leader in the Republican side. And so for the next year, we're going, until January, we're going to hear all this rehash and repeat of this kind of stuff coming up. And then something else really interesting too. When Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008, what happened? Huge housing real estate crash. And right now, mortgage rates going up, a lot of weakness in commercial real estate and in other real estate, other markets, as we go back into Capricorn again. So are we going to bookend the Pluto in Capricorn with the weakness in the housing market that, when things get really good, the prices go way up, the mortgages go way up, and no one can afford it. Then it all crashes down again. We're repeating. It's, Capricorn and Pluto are trying to show us, hey, repeating the same mistakes. Critical degree, U.S. Pluto return, all tied together. And so then we're going to go, so that's what we're going to have. And this is the same thing with our own lives. While these next few months are going on with Pluto in Capricorn, especially while it's retrograde till the 10th, we have to look at the structure of our own lives within this society and the way that's going. And how do we change those things on our individual level that, are no longer working also, within structures of our lives, physical and abstract. So and then it's unbelievable what this cycle shows too, because January 24th, like I said, next year, Pluto is going to go back into Aquarius. But then it will go retrograde again next June, about a year from now. And believe it or not, on September 2nd of 2024, it is going to go back into Capricorn one last time until November 20th of 2024, right during the U.S. presidential election. More likely than not, we're going to get a repeat of what happened the last time. Same two candidates, same result. Very, very interesting energy. So then Pluto will stay in Aquarius until March 9th of 2043. So it's going to get 20 years of looking at that ugly underbelly of what is technology doing to us as a society, and where are the weaknesses in that, and, and that kind of thing. But remember, so during this last Capricorn times, we're going to continue to see a lot of this structure break down, and a lot of the old power people trying to control that, even if it means war, like Russia and Ukraine or whatever. Like, people who are used to having their power are not going to want to give that up. And they look more and more ridiculous as Pluto exposes more and more of their ugly shadow side. But we're going to get, a lot of that stuff repeating until January. Then we'll dip into the Aquarius thing for about 9 months, and then another dip back into Capricorn right during U.S. elections. So very interesting. And then once that, we have those 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius, it'll be all about that energy. And then when it goes into Pisces in 2043, what will that be about? That'll be about exposing the ugly underbelly of a lot of belief systems and religion for the next 20 years. And that's a long way off, that one. But there's 3 other things I want to mention, and we still got the week to go. I could keep talking about that thing, for the Pluto and Capricorn thing, for another hour. But on June 17th, Saturn is going to go retrograde at 7 degrees, 13 minutes of Pisces until November 5th, where it will turn direct at 031. So it's going to stay in Pisces the next 4.5 months. And to me, this is a retreat once again. Saturn represents, once again, the authorities. It's a societal planet. It's, so it represents the society. It represents our leadership, in particular our courts, law and order. And I think think for the next 4.5 months, over the U.S.'s summer mainly, we're going to just see a lot of slowdown in a lot of stuff again. We're going to see people's conflicting beliefs because of the Pisces energy slowing things down again in society. So not a lot's going to get done. It's going to fit right in with that Pluto retrograde of like arguing and trying to coerce one another into each other's side instead of trying to cooperate and get things going. And in our lives, we have to, like, with with Saturn in Pisces going retrograde, we have to look at our own belief systems the next 4 months or so and ask ourselves, how are they restricting us? We have to really look at that in a serious way. Otherwise we're just going to turn into like a blind authoritarian about that and end up kind of, sticking ourselves in a narrow corridor again. And once again, kind of being stuck by the tides of history and time dragging us down. This is not, good for economic stuff. It's not good for political parties that are opposing one another to agree with anything. It is definitely not good for legal issues that people are going to be really upset once again with the courts. They're seeing how the courts are crooked too, and that they're influenced by politics, that they're not impartial, and that they're stuck to their belief systems, and it's causing things to go backwards in society right now. So, it does fit in very much with that Pluto retrograde too. The two of them together, just like they acted together back in 2021 when they conjuncted in Capricorn and brought us COVID. And all the control issues that were associated with that. So we're still having the same power bases, traditional people still trying to hold on to their power. June 19th, Jupiter sextile Saturn. Remember, let's go wind it back to December 20th of 2020 when everybody was so high on the great conjunction in the sky at 1 degree Aquarius of Jupiter and Saturn, the beginning of a 19-year cycle of new growth, new things in society. And I remember everybody was so high on that thing, not only watching it in the sky, but the ideas they had, those conjunction when the brings in, here we are at the sextile now. All right. Here we are at the sextile 3 years later, 4 years later, almost 3 years, 3.5 years later. And the sextile is a great balance. It's saying it is time to take steps forward. Opportunities are going to come to us that have to do with that idea, the things we wanted to build back then. And now is the time to take those opportunities. But the key is you have to work now. And what's great is there's a great balance going on right now between the two of these. They're always a great balance together because one restricts or energy, that is Saturn, and one expands it, Jupiter. So when they work together in this very methodical, practical, step-by-step, building a solid foundation thing. But what's required is the work from you. If you're not going to take the opportunities and do that work, then all those great ideas you had 3.5 years ago are just going to down the drain. So that's what's really required in this. And it's great because Jupiter is giving reception to Pisces right now. That is, Saturn is in Pisces. It's in Jupiter's sign. That's one of the signs that Jupiter rules. So Jupiter is giving its gifts to Saturn. It's like saying, yes, we can find a better way of doing things. We can overcome old values and upgrade our game and widen our viewpoints on things. And this will help us bring in opportunities that will go back to what we really want to do, what we were thinking about back in that time, and feed that energy so that we can bring that into our lives now. This is gaining knowledge, gaining wisdom, gaining experience. It's a good attitude. And it's also a great time. It's thrifty with money, which we need to understand right now. That fits the times. But it's also smart with money. It says, the money I have, I'm going to put it into things that are investments, actually, that pay off in the future, that continue to solidify the foundation, the base of what I want to do right now. So very, very key time in that cycle. If you're going to be real about that stuff, whatever you were believing in back then, you have to do this stuff. You have to work with the energy. And then the last thing I want to mention, June 30th. So that one's June 19th, by the way. June 30th is when Neptune goes retrograde. Remember, like I said, we're going into retrograde season. We have all the outer planets slowly but surely going retrograde. So Neptune goes retrograde, and Neptune will be retrograde. It'll turn retrograde at 27 degrees 41 minutes of Pisces until December 7th, where it'll go direct at 24:53 of Pisces. So still in the sign that it likes to be in the most. This will really help us in relation to what I was talking about on a personal level with the Saturn in Pisces retrograde. Looking at our own values and ideals and realizing where we're being held back, restricting ourselves because we're stuck in a system. And Neptune in Pisces will help us bring empathy, compassion, and sympathy and understanding in. But it's an internal processing that we're going to be doing the next few months again. And then we can bring that out again. But once again, unfortunately, Neptune, like Pluto, is a big planet of transformation, transforming the collective, transforming all of society. And when this Neptune retrograde is going to tie right into that negative part of Saturn in Pisces retrograde too, of people, especially courts, especially political leaders, lawmakers, legislators, being stuck in a very strong value system, Pisces, swimming away from the other value system, but connected at the tail, really all together, but not either acknowledging that or literally being completely ignorant of it and creating dichotomy and division instead of unification. So this is once again what we're going to see a lot of this again. This is like holy war kind of energy with Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces, both retrograde the next few months. Holy wars in our personal lives, holy wars in society, just being stuck on values that need to be relooked at and adjusted and be ready to change when things go direct. So, okay, the week has a lot going on too, and gosh, we're getting long already. So the week of June 5th through 11th, right away, today, Monday, Venus goes into Leo, and this is huge. The reason being is Venus is going to take a long stay in Leo. Usually Venus is in a sign for about a month. It's about the same as the sun. It usually moves about a degree a day, but Venus is actually going to go retrograde. It goes retrograde every couple of years or so, and it is going to go retrograde this summer. On July 24th, it is going to go retrograde at 29 degrees of Leo, right at the end of Leo, and it's going to stay retrograde until September 5th. By then, it'll have gone back to 13 degrees of Leo. So we're going to have 4 months of Venus in Leo instead of the normal 1 month. And so that's why it's a huge, significant shift. And we're going to have a lot of Venus in Leo energy to deal with. And so like when Venus goes into Leo, we're very like vivacious in a certain way, very externalized in the way we give affection. We're into socializing. We're into being almost like boisterous and wanting to be with our loved ones and being very loyal to them unless we feel like they're being unfair in some way. And a lot of times when Venus is in Leo, we may say, you know what? These people, I don't feel like I get a fair shake from them, and I'm, ready to not be as associated with them. The big thing we're going to learn about a lot with Venus in Leo is vanity and pride issues. That's where Venus in Leo can have some problems, and that creates issues in relationships. The key to Venus in Leo is finding balance in relationships, in the giving and taking of love and affection. Everybody wants it, and Venus in Leo is like a voyeur to get it. We're all going to want to show off our stuff, but a lot of times that turns other people off. You're too focused on yourself and showing off yourself, not receiving or seeing or hearing the other as well. So that's where the problem comes in. And then when being that pointed out to you, getting pompous or prideful about it instead of like, oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. So that's going to be the big lesson of this retrograde. And remember, Venus, when it's retrograde, it's going to affect your relationships. And so that's what you can already start looking at, is if you have pride and vanity issues and there's imbalance in the power structure of relationships you have, that's what this struggle is going to be about, especially when it hits retrograde. So it immediately today, as soon as it goes into Leo, it forms an opposition to Pluto, which is right at the beginning of Aquarius. We just talked about that. And so there you go. That brings up intense energy and issues and emotions and revelations in tight relationships, in partnerships. This can be a very indiscreet kind of energy. This is when a lot of times people, in a traditional relationship will go and cheat on one another, so to speak. Love affairs, obsessions that, you completely get compulsive about and X out a lot of the things that you would normally live up to in relationships because of that behavior. But in old relationships, it's about power struggles. It's about coercion, possession, manipulation, things like that, So it's really like, it needs to look at the reality of where relationships are at right now and bring that reality to those relationships and say, hey, this is where it's at. We need to, make some changes, come to some new agreements, or you're going to dissolve into power struggle type issues. Now, like I said, with new relationships, it's going to be compulsive, it's going to be imbalanced. So you have to be really careful about that stuff, because you may just completely do Plutonian things to get what you want on a desire level and completely forget about, your value systems. You can also need to be a little bit careful with money again, with this energy being compulsive with money, but we can really output some great creative work because of the energy coming up. You can really be your own analyst a lot of times with this energy too, or even get counseling kind of energy. Now, on Friday, Mercury is going to sextile Neptune, and this is really sweet. This is like right brain energy for the intellect. So we kind of go into an abstract, impressionist kind of world. We get a lot of inspiration, a lot of imagination. A lot of people use it to study spirituality or working with words in artistic forms. So like creative writing, storytelling, lyrical writing, poetry writing, rapping, all that kind of stuff. Very, very easy to tap into on Friday, and a good time, just for study of metaphysical stuff, learning new things like that. Definitely not the best time to make concrete, real world decisions though, because you're kind of more in a dreamy world, in a world of inspiration. Then very next day and late that night, even the sun sextiles Chiron, and that's really sweet for the weekend. Saturday. That shows that there's new opportunities that come up that feed your being, that are like healthy for you, that bring healing to you, that bring, that tap into new creative outlets, that recognize your talent and put it into places where it works well for you. So this makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel confident about the person you are and the path you're on, and that it's working. And it's very like give and take with others too. It sends that energy out to others. It helps others. It wants to teach others. It wants to learn from others. And then Sunday is that big day when Pluto goes back into Cap that I started the whole blog about on the monthly, the big thing of the month. But what's interesting about that too is as soon as it goes back into Cap, Mercury is right at the end of Taurus. So it's going to trine Mercury. So that's a great day for deep inner psyche work, for really seeing the things that make your mind work, the things that motivate you. It's a great focusing energy, a great for research use, for looking deeply into anything that you're into and getting down to the bottom of things, getting to the, places where, and talk about being a good self-analyst. That's one of the best times to do it, because you really can see what motivates your mind and your intellect. And it is a good time to get counseling too, to give that or receive that. And so right away, as soon as that happens later in the day, Mercury goes into Gemini. So we get the second inner planet changing signs this week. And Mercury is super strong in Gemini. That's a sign it rules. That is when Mercury goes about like a butterfly, collecting information with this very curious, open mind. It doesn't really get into stuff emotionally or on really deep levels, but it loves to collect information, and especially in any area that it's in, and then it wants to communicate that information somehow too, mainly for itself. It likes to rehash things in order to actually integrate it within itself. So like a lot of talk, a lot of communications of all types. It will be in, it goes in on June 11th, and it will stay in Gemini until June 28th. So we got about 2 weeks of this the mind is very acute, it's very sharp, it's witty, it's funny, it's humorous, and it is seeking knowledge. So it's a great time to read books, take in information on the web, to get information in your local area. Any kind of short trips bring new information, and it's also really good for business trips too. Good for commerce, that kind of thing. I mean, it's not going to get into things deeply, for sure. It's going to, avoid the deep emotional and intellectual questions. And then the last thing on Sunday, great day for a get-together. Venus square Jupiter, one of the best aspects for just sitting back and having fun with your loved ones. A great day for a barbecue, a party, any kind of social gathering, or going to an artistic event. Just having some fun. You'll probably waste some money, probably spend some money on things you don't really need, but it's just really an optimistic, good aspect to close Sunday on. So a lot going on this week, and then those very big shifts, especially with the Pluto and Capricorn combining with the Saturn retrograde, the Neptune retrograde, and then that Jupiter sextile Saturn. Really important 4 things in June. And then this week, 2 of those planets turning into new signs. A lot to learn in the next 4 months about pride issues in relationship, with that Venus and Leo, and it'll go retro, and then Mercury and Gemini, a time to collect lots of information, a lot to go on. Okay, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel, a free service that I offer every week. If you'd like to give a donation, I won't say no. My Venmo handle is the symbol at Matthew, capital M with 2 T's, hyphen in the middle, Lawton, capital Lauten. No amount is too small, and anyone who's ever given, I thank you so much. But best way you can pay me back is to pass this link on to somebody else right as soon as you're done. I appreciate it. Remember, half the world at least believes in astrology now. I know you've given it to other people already. Give it to someone else. Also, when you need that reading, when you really want to get a good professional reading, not just something from a book or a computer or somebody who read a book once. I am a professional astrologer. I've been giving professional readings for over 20 years. That's after 7 years of educational training, 10 years of self-taught before that. I've done many charts over those years, and would love to do it for you too when you're ready for that. Get your birth chart done. You carry it with you all the time. It's the energy that's operating in you, and when you're aware of that energy, you can make your life so much more fulfilling. Every year around your birthday, get a predictive reading done, just like this one I do for the weekly. I do it for you only for a year, so that you see the energies coming in and for your year, and can once again have more fulfillment and power and control over how to dictate and use that energy, rather than just being, whimsically blown along by it. And then also, if children's charts, relationship charts, astro locality relocation type charts, horary if you have a question that you can't get an answer to, elections if you're looking for the best timing, fixed star readings if you're looking for deeper soul purpose and you've got a good understanding of your natal chart. Also have beginners classes available, and if you have a group that needs a lecture, a class, mini questions and answer session, a mini readings for your event, anything like that, all those things, please email me and we discuss how we can set that up. It's matthue823@gmail.com. That's matthue823@gmail.com. Thanks so much for all your support. Thanks for allowing the blog to grow. I would love to do your chart. So get in touch with me. I'll see you all next week. We're gonna get our new moon probably next week, right? Probably new moon. I can double check that really quick. But we'll probably get our new moon. Yes, new moon in Gemini at 27 degrees. So another critical degree new moon. I'll see you all then.